Namaskar. Good evening and welcome to third session of our international webinar series, Pratibimb, Social Enigma and its Resolutions. In the two sessions that we had earlier, yesterday and day before yesterday, we had our speakers, Dr. P. Shaktivel from Annamala University and Dr. Praveen Kumar Jha from Norway, Kongsberg. They both discussed with us. Mr. P. Shaktivel discussed about the cybersecurity related issues, and yesterday with Dr. Praveen Kumar Jha, we came to know about the implementing patterns of law and order during this pandemic situation in their region. He discussed about Scandinavian pattern of education and how the people of Scandinavia have taken seriously about the measures being given by the government. Today, with us, we have Mr. Kautuk Raman. He is an core member of eSamadh Foundation. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar has been organized on the occasion of 91st death anniversary of Sarkare Tirhut or Maharaja of Darbhanga, Sir Rameshwar Singh. And that's why we have invited him today to deliver and share with us his views. And as he's living in London, UK, he completed his studies from Lalit Narayan Mitra University, Bihar, and he has been working in software industry for more than 2 decades now. At present, he's working for a globally renowned technology company delivering global consulting services to a top tier bank from London. He is well versed in several languages, native languages of Bihar, such as Maithili, Hindi, Bhojpuri, Maghi, and Angika. He will be sharing his views on impact of COVID-19 on school education in purview of social economic disparity in United Kingdom and India. He has been closely monitoring the situations in India as well, and also he'll be sharing with the situation how the educational system has been suffering in London and India both. And now I would like to invite him on the screen. Welcome for the session, sir.
Thank you.
And as you can see on the screen, my partner manager Faizan Ahmed, he has been working with me for Kind Beings as a partner manager in the project EduShala, and he'll brief you about the Kind Beings NGO. And meanwhile, I'd like to remind you what eSamadh has been doing. eSamadh, by its name, is the e-newspaper being functional since 2008. They have been releasing e-newspapers in Maithili language, the long-lost regional language newspaper pattern. And they have been working extensively in the field of journalism, being the voices of the most rural corners of Bihar. And also, they have been functional on ground level through their foundation, helping people through the most times of most distress, such as disasters and pandemics like encephalitis. And now will brief you about the Kind Beings duties and what we are doing actually.
Thank you, Komal. Good evening to everyone. I am Fazan Ahmed as a project manager of EduShala. This program comes under the Kind Being NGO. We are working to give the education to the underprivileged children, and we are purpose to push them to their betterment, growth, stable, and economic future. Right now, under this pandemic, we are giving virtual classes from class 6 to 12. I'm likely thanks to the Ajay Thakur as the founder of Kind Being. He believed me, and I also thanks to the manager of the respective sports and volunteers, and especially the team Munirka. They have done much good work under this pandemic situation. Over to you, Komal. Thank you.
Now it's over to you, sir.
Hi, Komal. Hi, Faizan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to eSamadh and Kind Being and all of us for giving an opportunity to talk about the impact on education. Though my feeling banking, I very like about social changes and what is happening in the society, and I thought I will share what I feel about what is going on and what can we do about it. So Not taking too much time of you, I will share my screen with one small PPT, and then we will talk about different stuffs over. So, okay. So today we are going to talk about, basically the idea is to start a conversation on the disparity part of the education. We all know that education has suffered, COVID has changed our lives forever. And at this moment, wherever we are, it's not very easy for anyone. So be it in education, be it in media, or be it uh, medicine or any industry, every industry is suffering. But education is one area where future generation is suffering. And they are losing an opportunity to come forward and prepare for the future. Other people are like other businesses where we have financial, they can be recovered, but the time which we kids are losing is not very easy to recover. Then we will go and talk about what schools are doing, what government is doing, and where they are able to reach out to people in different segment of societies.
Sir, just a second.
Mhm.
Can you please keep your mic a bit far from your mouth?
Is it better
Little
now?
bit. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you very much. So coming to that, we all know the COVID situation has impacted the school, and every around the world, most of the countries have closed their school, and it was a very right decision. And it was a necessity to stop the spread, which is happening rapidly across the world, giving it to parents, kids come to school, they get infected, they go back to school,
Sir,
get infected. Sorry,
voice is not clear. Some disturbance. Now say something.
is it clear now?
Yeah, clear. Yeah, quite clear. Okay.
I may have to take some pause then. So I was talking about most of the schools have closed that there are schools that to stop the spread of the virus. In UK, we have seen that the schools were not completely closed. They were open for the kids of key workers. Key workers mean people who are working in hospitals, railways, or delivery, or police. People are like that. They are considered key workers, and there are a lot of families where they do not have anybody else to take care of the kids. So it was important the schools are open for those kids, and they continued there. So just a bit of information and difference between what happened in India and what happened in UK in terms of the school closure. But school closed, it was a good thing and it was right to do and important also. But it has caused a lot of impact on education segment where it's a very time bound activity and it has to complete within that period. Otherwise, we are completely in a different cycle. So we have lost the learnings. That's the first thing everybody knows about. Then what we have seen is some of the kids had the final exams, like some India we call board exams, in UK we call GCSE, A level, graduation exams. They have been cancelled, and this cancellation has come into in a time where these kids were totally prepared. They were almost about to go to the exam, and that this have cancelled. The impact of cancellation of exam is taken in two ways. First thing, the kids who were prepared and they were expecting a better grade, perhaps. Many of the kids work very hard day and night to achieve something. So they are not sure whether they will get what they deserve or they have worked for. The schools are talking about, in UK, they're talking about predicted grades. Even I think India, some of the schools are taking that approach. Some may take the delayed exams and try to cover it. But those kids who are supposed to change from one layer to other level, for example, in India, we call board exam to the highest secondary, where you go to plus two, and here we call it A level, or from A level to going to graduation, we talk about. So they are, if they go on predicted grades, they may not get the subject they wanted to, and that's a big worry for these kids. Apart from that, I have heard that especially in UK, they are allowing those kids who are not satisfied with their grades to resit exam in a delayed November sometime, but by the time it's too late for them to move to the next level, even if they get a better grade, they may not be able to switch it to a different school. The other impact we are seeing is the future effect. As we talk about the predicted grades, the admission which is supposed to happen at school, if either they have to hold it for a while or they have to go on whatever the grade they get. So that part. The kids who are completing their graduations, or some people in the UK and India stop the education at +2 or what's called 13th or 12th level year, and they go into jobs. If they were supposed to go to jobs, the markets are closed, their hiring is are either stopped, or even some companies are going in reduction mode. They are not able to get that. If that doesn't happen, the next year they will see that the next year kids who are coming to that level and passing the exams and schools, they will also be competing together, and that's another fear for the kids. But however, the current kids who are in the school, every lesson they are missing, they are missing the potential for the future earnings, what they could have learned today, and that needs to be taught. So schools are coming with different ideas. Everybody is new in this situation, and a lot of people are doing a lot of different approaches. But whatever they are doing, the intentions are right from everywhere, and we will talk about that as well. Now, within the schools, we have heard about the going to online classes and other things, but the school education itself is segmented into 4 areas. One is the curriculum. We talk about academic education, subject-wise, math, English, physics, whatever we talk. Then there are other 3 elements which are not clearly visible to parents many times, and you only come to know when the kids complete the education and they start showing up those skills in the real skills in real life. For example, leadership skills, talking on the stage. For example, year 8 kid, 13-year, 12-year kid going to stage and talking to a crowd is a different skill, and which is not available to everyone without the schools. So those things cannot be taught over home or online. So that is severely impacted, and every year they're losing. For example, somebody who was supposed to pass this year, this complete the school this year, they were supposed to catch up on those skills to prepare for the market. They're completely lost, and it will have to be compensated to them somehow, or they will be lagging in future forever for those skills, because markets are not ready to teach this subject. These are taught in schools and universities. There are some topics which are very uncomfortable for parents, and they don't want to talk about it, or they are not well versed enough on the subjects, and some are very sensitive as well for parents to talk about. For example, reproduction. Not every parents in India like to talk these subjects with the kids. Or racism, for example, one race to other race, everybody has some kind of emotions attached to it. It's very difficult to debate those topics with the kids or explain them why it happens, perhaps to understand them ourselves as a parent, and then teach the kids about that. Religious study, for example, and Hindus, parents cannot be comfortable enough to teaching about other religions because they don't know about it. But teacher who are teaching the religious studies are well versed in those topics. So we are missing those topics, which happens in class, school, seeing other people, how they behave, how they dress up, how they practice their religions, and how kind and compassionate things comes up when you interact with people. Diversity, today's in the world, we talk about LGBT, we talk about feminism, we talk about equal opportunities, what you call, we have India, we have reservations, then we have multilingual topics. All these topics you cannot teach unless you have really experience in a very fast amount of time, and the teachers do that. Politics, some people have inclination in the parents do have inclination toward politics, but teachers are impartial, and it is not a bullet absolutely you can give to people. Okay, this is what about this. So discuss more and more in the classrooms and in online classes or the notes. It's not very easy to discuss. For example, terrorism as well. These are sensitive topics which parents may not be comfortable and talk about. The fourth element of topic comes, which is education comes, is physical education, which like martial art, dance, acting, sports. They are taught face to face with physical interaction. Without that, is impossible to teach that. So those 3 areas I'm talking about, they have completely lost, and I don't know how parents will be or school will be catching up on them. But if the sooner the school opens, they will have to work on these parts to catch up on that. Now, moving toward that, what schools have done regarding alternate to regular school? We go to school, attend the class, go to what you call gallery, conference halls, and talk about playground teachings. So those are they have been lost, and schools have resorted to online school, homeschooling options, giving online classes, giving offline remote assignments, or recorded session, for example. But I have seen some of the challenges around that. We will talk about that as well. So these online classes, for example, in the UK, what they do, they have few classes in online in a week and then go on the offline remote assignments. I'm talking about India. I'm seeing people are given assignments for and sorry. Some parents, some schools are today only. I was talking to one of the parent. He was saying my kids I have two kids and they are getting WhatsApp video call, and they're sitting on the call from complete school hour. That means 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 9 to 4, whatever the schedule they have. They have to sit on those sessions, and it's not easy for them. The kids, every kid has a different age, different mental capacities, and those are coming into the hindrance in terms of education. Then some of the schools have taken other approach that I will give alternate week classes to, so that can reduce the capacity to half and create a distancing in the seating, walking areas. They are able to do some of them, but not every school is comfortable. Neither they have space enough to accommodate that kind of structure. Then definitely, as I said earlier, very limited option for homeschooling provides for training which demands physical interactions, and schools are also not able to offer the support for non-academic tasks and regular well-being. For example, a kid goes to school, talks to his friends, talks about cinema, talks about what happened at home, or what matches he watched yesterday. His siblings, there's a lot of kids I have heard that they at home look very amicable, but when they go to school, they have complaints about the siblings. They do it to friends. I think this is very harmless, and but that allows them to offload their feelings and keep them maintain very well balanced behavior in terms of day-to-day activities. These are lost, and that is direct impact. So parents, it is not possible for kids to complain to parents about all the sibling behaviors when they go to school, they talk to Pranjit Acha, they offload their emotions and they come back home fresh. That is also lost. Now, coming back to the challenges the participants in this homeschooling environment provides. So that we have challenge to students and teacher and parents. All three are facing challenges because not everybody is so comfortable or tech savvy or facilitated enough to go into this online mode. It happens suddenly, randomly, not randomly, sorry. It happens suddenly and drastically to everybody, and people were not prepared for it. Neither the schools, nor the teachers, nor the kids themselves itself, or the parents. Even the governments were not ready for that. So the few areas of challenge I have seen that one is the familiarity with the technology. I mean, in my daughter in England goes to one of the best school in England, they say, but there I have heard the teachers themselves have to go for more than a month of technical training to learn how to teach remotely. And this kind of technology teaching, which is very costly and very much time taking for the teachers. A history lesson teacher, for example, may not be very well versed with computers, or science teacher may not be very well with the computers. Not everybody is like that because they never needed to. They could write some of the notes, they could write some of the topics, but they don't know how to interact. They've never gone to Zoom classes, for example. And there are other modes as well. So that is one challenge that the teacher themselves facing. Then we have students who goes to school, look at the whiteboard, take the notes, come back home, revise it. They have lost. They don't know how to take notes on the online classes. They need to wait for something to come up on their Google Classroom or whatever they're using, or email, and then read them. So they need to rely on printers, or maybe it's not very easy for everybody to cope up with this kind of overwhelming environment. And parents, then the last pillar in the education. A lot of parents even don't have any knowledge about computers, and that becomes a big challenge. The kids are stuck at home. Daddy, I'm not able to connect to, or for example, things like that. They don't have any support. So, and that is because the background of the people, where they come from, what kind of lifestyle they have. I don't expect a person who is doing carpentry work to know computers about so much than the person like me who's working in the technology all the time. Or there are some people who are far better than me. So it's not very easy for them. So parents have challenge. We have, I just talk about that student, kids, teacher, anyway they are facing us. Then we have third element coming in the homeschooling is that disruptions at home. Somebody might have a dog which barks a lot, for example. Somebody might have a sibling which is very younger sibling or elder sibling keeps kids. This kid is crying throughout the day and he's not able to focus and he cannot go anywhere, right? He has to do something. He's supposed to focus on the education. And I have seen this in India, I've seen this in the UK, and it happens everywhere. Some people have large families and it's very difficult to control everybody. Oh, I'm studying, please don't disturb me. Neither they have space enough to manage it. When talking about this, I also realize one or more factors that some people are living in very small areas, small houses, apartments, and it is very challenging environment for them to live in that situation and then focus on the study throughout the day and be productive as well and be focused. So these disruptions are also causing the lack of interest, lack of focus in the kids, and then they are overwhelmed by that. Okay, they have to complete the assignments. Teachers are still, especially in India, I've seen even here that some teachers are demanding. I have given you assignment. You got to spend time on it. You got to deliver it. You are losing the time. They themselves first are worried first that they are in a situation now. I don't know how much they know about COVID. Perhaps they know because the internet and everything is helping them. But the kids who don't have, they are worried. We as a parent are worried. Government is worried. People who are well educated and well affluent are worried. And kids are kids. I mean, no matter how old they are, it could be 16 or 5. Both have same level of temperament. It comes to worry. They get worried very fast. So it becomes very difficult for them to maintain the focus. Then the the other thing I see is that very limited reach and influence of teacher and kids. When you are in school, when you're sitting 30 kids an hour, whatever the lot of kid you have, the rhythm they develop by sitting together and focusing on the particular topic is totally lost. You can go and tell people, okay, I want you to focus on online subject. You can be on video call. You can say my camera is not working or something. Even though it's working, it's not very easy to listen to 50 people in the conversation through the headphone. But when you are in class, you listen to everything, right? I mean, that's a different kind of engineering we have in the brain set, but it doesn't work with the technology. You have to really focus on the who is saying what. Is there a disturbance in the line? This thing doesn't work in the technology environment. In the live environment, you can actually focus 5 people talking at a time. So that influence goes from the environment itself and then teacher-kids relationship, which is very bonding. I have been to schools and I was very bonded to my few of the teachers. That is being lost because the teachers are not able to talk to a mass and they don't have time enough to teach to every 30 people or 60 people. We have some people in class in India to talk to everyone and how are they feeling? Are they reciprocating enough what have been taught? Are they nodding? Are they yawning? This kind of things are totally lost. The teacher don't have control on your behavior. Teachers are not able to influence your thought process, and there is no way we can compensate it. And out of this all process, what we are happening is the teachers are stressed. Teachers are worried that my class, who has been so far so good, is not going to do well this year, and how would I compensate them? I feel that most of the teachers are very enthusiastic, honest, and want their kids to do very well. They are stressed about that, and the amount of work they have to do on the class, off the class to do the preparation and management. They have to spend a lot of time about it. And after all, these parent teachers are also human beings. They have family, they have parents, and some of them kids are going to different schools, for example. So all these are stress are coming into mental well-being, and I can see when I talk to my natives, I talk to my niece, nephew, and I see that their face. They don't look so happy when 5 months ago they were like today. So these are the challenges to participants I was referring to. Now I will come touch. Now I'm going to touch the second topic, which I was saying that okay, that how will this home learning model is going to work for people, and is it going to work effectively for everyone in the society? And that's the topic of this discussion conversation today. When I send my kids to school, I don't care where the other kid is coming from, or the other kid don't care what my kid is coming from. They go together, learn together in an equal environment. The teacher is same, bench, desk, classroom, topics, everything is same, and whatever information education is available is equal for everybody. It doesn't matter who is in the class. However, when I move this classroom to the offline or to remote learning, we lose that equality completely. And that totally depends on where are the parents located? Do they have enough resources to support the kids to go for online learning? Or yeah, it could be location, it could be their monetary funding, it could be the family environment, so many things. But one part is the income proportion as well, where they are located. Are they able to go live in the society where they have better internet, better power backup, things like that? And then there are people who could be in an area where it's still struggling to get these things. So I was trying to calculate if every kid has to go to the online learning, what would it need? So in terms of talking to India, I was saying that 15 to 18% houses still do not have regular electricity connections. I mean, they perhaps do not get a power supply. So the online class going on, and your power cut happens. How are they going to learn about it? Will they miss it? Yes, they are going to miss it. As I said, you to example that we were talking today on one of the relatives, and he says, "Oh, I have to do online WhatsApp class or a video." And sometimes the networks are very bad, or my phone goes down, or computer goes down, and by the time I connect again, I've lost the topic. The teacher moves on, the class moves on. As for them, it's not possible to catch up. So first thing, the electricity itself, the 15 to 80% how doesn't have, and then we are talking, okay, we can say we have alternatives. We can go to solar power, we can go to generator, we can go to inverter, battery backup, whatever. But that's not available for everyone, right? I last few years ago, I checked in India, the basic inverter costs around 18,000 rupees, and not everybody earns that much, right? So we are seeing the two areas where it is going to be a challenge for those people who are into that segment, the people who are in the last grade of the society. They're going to struggle. The first thing, the electricity. Then comes the affordability of the remote learning. Even if you give the electricity, you may have proper broadband in your internet in your area, for example. But is every parent, for example, some parents have 3 kids, 2 kids, right? And they may not have had the laptop or the PC at the house. And at today's price, I checked today, that in the cheapest computer laptop if they want to buy, which comes with a power backup, internet modem, and everything together, is going to cost them 27,000 INR. Or if I go to UK, the cheapest one is going to 219, 220 pound, maybe VAT exclusive, inclusive. I didn't check that. That's another 20%. But they're going to spend this much of money to facilitate one student's full-time learning from home, and that is needed. Even if I go for PC, instead of laptop, which is movable and compatible for the kids to go to one room to living room, if that is environment is not surrounding is not very good, PC we cannot move in. If you have enough space to fix in, perhaps you will be inclined toward the PC and setting up a desk, but that is also going to cost you around 15,000 to 120k, 120 pound in GBP in UK minimum. And I'm talking about the very basic, which sometime may not work the way we want it. Then we have internet challenges. We have some places we have wired broadband, some places we have mobile broadband, and these three things are compulsory for any kids to go online classroom. They need regular electricity power supply. They need an efficient computer where they can connect to. They can use their headphone, micros, what you call webcam, then internet. How reliable our internets are in UK? Decently, yes. It has come up to the stage where people can connect and they can stay connected for some time, for a quite longer time. Still, there are some disruptions, but it's not everyday kind of situation. So this comes to the cost of going online from the parent side, and will they be able to afford it? So I will going to touch that point as well. Now, as I said, 17-18% doesn't have power backup. You can say, yeah, you can arrange alternative power sources, and perhaps you can go online and still do the classes. But do we really have in India the wired network everywhere? I don't think so. I mean, I come from a place which is kind of village. It's grown up in a lot of segments, what you call, in a lot of aspects. But in this area, I can still see when I go home, I try to work from home, and in India, I do struggle to stay connected throughout the day. So I just try to get this download from today. I just see how the network capacity is in India today. And you can see some of the areas are very affluent. You have 5G, 4G, 3G definitely. But you see those areas, right, which is white. Maybe they are in mountain area. Maybe they are in what you call a lot of jungles around it. Maybe they are very, what you call it, not dense enough. The companies have not gone and put the towers over there. So if somebody is sitting out there where you have closed these schools and we are saying, okay, I will do it through the online classes, you may not be able to conduct the class itself because not everybody has sufficient power backup or the internet connectivity, even if you want to go on mobile connections, for example, I've taken. And this is the challenge. This is what I was talking about. The disparity we have in society as a country is a challenge for us. And the government have had done a lot of work, but they will need to continue to rapid expansion of things. They will have to find ways to get it faster because this is not first time is happening. The COVID has come. It is going to happen similar thing in future as well. Once it starts, it's not going to go back. We'll have to change our lifestyles. We will come in a better prepared way, but it is going to happen things like that. So the idea of this slide is to show that, okay, we have people in the society, whether we think, okay, we are doing very good, that's why it is good, but no, we have people who will struggle in this environment. And as we are all talking about the general public, it is always important to remember those people who are last in the queue. If we have last man standing in the society should be covered in the policies, or when we are thinking about any social changes, it is very important. We were not prepared, but it will be important that it is thought and well prepared for the future cases in case it happens, and we should be able to do that. Now, going back to the affordability of the computers we talk about, or mobiles, for example, we were showing, okay, we can go on mobile classes. This is our income disparity in India. So look at around 460, 470K million houses in India. Look at that 200, sorry, not 400, 260, 270 million houses in India. And the most of the people in India falls into the first two bars. It is improving. You can see the people are falling from a struggler to from 2010, if the people are a struggler, it has moved to the next billion, then going toward Aspire, Elite, that way. But it's going to take decades to get into these people into this segment and that segment. And the idea is to talk about this area who comes into the annual income of 2,400, 2,500, maybe 3,000. It's data is old. So let's example, take it $4,000 in a year. It is not very comfortable situation for these people. If you ask them to go and spend 15,000 on a computer or spend something on power sources, they may not be able to afford it. And it is important the policymakers and the government, even the schools, needs to start thinking how they can include them in their policies, or we as a group of people who are thinking as a humane way can include them in our conversations. Who is talking about them? If we talk about this, there are chances that next policy, when it comes up, it will cover them as well. So this is income disparity I talk about, and then I talk about the cost of the affordability for the parents, and you can compare how can this is only income group I'm talking. They have their expenses, medicine, food, different bills to afford for, and it is not a very easy situation. And people will say, yeah, even UK, you are in UK, you may be able to talk about it because it looks very hunky-dory over here. No, it is not. I just took an example of today. If somebody earns minimum wage throughout the year, two parents, both the parents are working full time and they get minimum wage, which is very good, decent wage over here, they will get into here somewhere. If somebody has one parent and somebody doesn't work full time, things like that, they will start falling into this side of the area where the affordability becomes a big challenge for them as well, whether be it a computer. I have seen the houses here and here. They look very nice, they everything is happy, but when I talk to them and they say, yeah, I see struggle, they cannot afford a laptop. I cannot just go and buy a 200-pound laptop, because the 200 pound means something for them. They got to do something very useful for that. So even they are struggling. So I have seen people who they don't have computers at home, and when they have to send them emails, they go to library, even here. And they have families and everything. If they want to do a photocopy or print, they go to library. They can't afford the printers and computers and everything at home. So now that is changing. It is going to impact them. The one difference I was talking about is we have in UK and India. In UK, most of the schools are government schools, where going to school is not dependent on your income level or things like that. In India, it is different slightly, because we don't have enough government schools to support everybody. So what 20 years ago government talked about is a public-private partnership, where government allowed the schools, private entities, to open more and more schools, and it took off the load from government. But those schools are not very affordable to everybody as well. So the people in India has to look at the affordability of the schools plus the other costs I'm talking about. Now, yeah, the coming on the school education. So what is happening in the society? We are seeing this kind of things, and then what is happening? The parents are very anxious. So they are talking about our kids are losing the learnings, and I'm paying the fees. Like in my family, there are people who are continuously paying the fees to schools, and they are not satisfied enough. I'm paying the same fees I used to pay 5 months ago, and today also I pay the same fees. So they, as a parent, when you're, or not as a parent, as a consumer, because you're buying things from the school, you're paying the money, start looking at the return of the money, and they are not happy enough. I can see that most of the parents I talk, they don't look very happy. And one thing is the loss of learning itself, and the second thing, the quality of learning they're getting through this model is not very happy and not very satisfactory for them. Then we have some parents who are working in this industry where they cannot stay at home. For example, somebody working in a police ISS example, or in a what you call a doctor's, nurse, or maybe some of the drivers who are very important for the society to deliver things and like that. So these are the society issues I'm seeing as a parent, as a teacher. Teachers are, we talked already earlier. Then we have distractions and risk of the letting kids go online. That's one very big risk. I see risk and the worry both from the parent side. I give my kids a laptop. I give my kids total freedom to use the internet, and they are going on schools, websites, or everything. But I do not have a control which social media sites or what are they doing in online, and neither every parent is prepared enough to control it, firewalls, all these things, to manage it. And that's a big worry for a lot of parents, that allowing kids to go online for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours a day, they are worried. And I don't see any guidelines coming from any of the government. I've been reading news over here. I have reading news in India. The only those parents who have had computers at home for some time, who have had experience on the computers, they are well aware of. They are trying to protect their kids from getting harmed, things like that. And online world is very nasty when it goes to that dark side. So the parents who are aware of those risks are really worried. And I don't know how are we going to manage it, but it is important we educate parents about it, we educate kids about it. In UK, at least in schools, they talk to your parents, they talk to kids. Please do not do that. Do not go to Twitter and start doing something nonsense, because anonymity is not always guaranteed. It looks anonymous, it's not always guaranteed. You can bring in trouble to yourself. You can get into harming situations. But India, I don't have that education. So I don't see, neither the media talks about it, nor the government talks about it, nor the children talk about it, nor the parents, nor the schools. Nobody talks about it. And I see a big social issues around here. So what can I do as a parent, as a social member? people should be spreading the news, like the day before professor was talking about the cyber attacks, cyber securities. It was very important aspect to look at. If you're not well aware of cyber defense in terms of, then you can be getting into big risk. And more people like us who are in this group conversation should be talking about these topics to each others and learn how we can control it, how can help kids to stay safe online, and that needs to be addressed. Then we have cyber safety, identity theft, not having antivirus in the computers, leaving your personal information all over the world. You go to Facebook, you go to medias, you put your name, address, home, everything, and next day you know there is a robber at your home. So it is possible. Then we have identity theft. Somebody steals your information, tries to copy your mobile number, get into your bank, and those things. So I'm not touching too much detail on that, though I work in a bank, because my previous speaker have talked about cyber safety and all this. So I will leave that topic over here. But this is the impact on school education, which is creating a social issue as well and together. And parents are worried, teachers are worried about it. Then let's look at the schools. So what schools are facing through. The schools in India are more, as I said some time ago, that most of the schools are private schools in India, because 20-30 years ago we started building private school. We allowed stop creating new schools from government side and ask people to create their own schools. They fund it through people and then work on that social structure which will allow them to educate the kids. But then what we have seen is not every school in India is same. We have schools which are very big, very well funded, they have teachers who are trained very well. But then there we have schools which is in some corner. There people have started schools, but they are struggling with financial. Their finances are very weak. They do not have perhaps enough students, or perhaps they do not uh, charge enough monies, or they are not able to charge it because the, the, the school going kids which is coming to them, perhaps the family itself is not well affluent enough. So there is a big competition to them. They have challenges in terms of finances. The teachers they get into schools, and they will struggle. They are struggling already. I feel that they are struggling. And on top of that, their biggest problem is the parents who are paying the fees to them are not feeling that they are receiving the value of money, because they don't see kids going to school. They don't see kids getting homework. They don't see kids getting their examination book checked or getting the unit test we used to have in India. Here also we have, but we do not pay, so we not think too much that way. Rather, we think about collectively how the kids are going to do. But India is a different way. We pay the fees. We want the results. We want better results for our kids. We want our kids to get smarter day by day, and we are not seeing that. So we are worried. But if the parents think that way, that I will not pay because my kids are not getting enough the value of the money, then the teachers will, the schools will struggle, which many schools are already struggling. They will struggle further, and they will have to stop paying to the teachers. Perhaps they can keep the building, they can use the building for some other purpose. The teachers, the staff, people who they have trained for years, they will have to lose those people, because if the teachers are not getting paid, they will have to do something else to feed themselves. They got to do something. They are also parents. They are human beings. So that's one big challenge for the schools, to come up with ideas how they can actually survive in this environment. And that's income disparities. Again, I'm talking about is triggering this part as well, because we don't have special income everywhere the same. So not schools, every school is able to charge same money to everybody. And because of that, the schools are likely that some of the schools might close, some of the teachers might move, and even if they open it up sometime, they may not get the same teacher back, right? So if that happens, those teachers are not coming back. When our kids go to school, back to school, they may not have the same learning again. So perhaps they will not get the same school again. So it is kind of dilemma for parents and teacher both. And these teachers are also parents, so they also have similar worries. There's a cycle of it. So I was talking about the school challenge for Indian schools. Now, I was thinking about that. when the challenges come to schools like that, I talked about the kids challenge, I talked about parent challenge, I now talked about schools challenge as well. Now, if I talk about the schools, what schools can do, so they will have to come up some of the ideas. The parents are feeling that they are not getting enough value of the money because that whatever they're paying. So school will have to address that concern first, and to try to make sure that okay, I'm ready to listen to you. So first thing this will start looking at the restructuring the fees. For example, you have been charging transport fees for some time earlier. We had the buses running, we had the conductors, drivers, every cost coming to that. Restructure your fees. You should do that. So to address the parents' need, because parents are feeling that they did not pay it. So move those building fund you have been charging, maintenance fees, for example, you have been charging. Take that money off and put that money somewhere. Even if you're charging, ask for the technological infrastructure. If you do not have enough computers in school, you do not have power backup in the school, you do not have internet service in the school, invest into those. And if you ask those parents, I'm running schools in this way, coming from that regular model to online model, and I will need you to pay for this kind of service. Perhaps they will be happy because you are going to facilitate that, right? So we will have to start thinking that way. You cannot go into conventional mode. Okay, you come to my school, I teach you, and I will charge you whatever I want, and then parent will be happy around that. So 1 second. Yeah. So take that money off, invest in technology infrastructure, make more better, what you call, if you are going to conduct online classes, perhaps it will be good if you can create a soundproof rooms or a green room, for example, or with the information, the software, buying software, which will help you out there. Then you invest in a lead line from the ISP because you're doing so many online classes back to back and every class is running online. If it is possible for you, if you're thinking that next 6 months is going to happen, it's better to hire a lead line from the ISPs for 6 months where you don't have the network issues with this teachers. Invest in the people who are technical engineers who can help you in running this infrastructures, getting computer support, network, broadband, things working around that. Bring the teachers to school where they can discuss about what they're going to do and give them dedicated rooms. Perhaps use those buildings for that kind of model where the teachers come to school, they discuss what they're going to do today, and they have enough support for from each other, and then they go to room and teach that from that class. So they don't have to carry all the books or notes every day at home and think about what I'm going to do next. If I'm struggling, whom should I approach to? Because they have the kids school community still going on. Then invest in the teachers. Not every teacher is technical buff. You have to tell them that okay, teach them how to manage it. Okay, they learn about the technology. There are multiple ways of running online classes, and then if you are able to teach them that I've given one link also. If somebody wants to make a note, this link is very good. You can actually give you how many options are there into run virtual classrooms. Buy the softwares. Teach the kids to parents on how to go on to the classes, prepare your lessons, and how to conduct sessions around that, how to create assignments and then track it. I will give you a very example for the why it is important, because as I told you some time ago, my daughter goes to a school which is one of the top school in England, government school. And what happened is the teacher was giving assignments to students. Okay, and what she didn't know is the kids are supposed to comment on that assignment. And she was looking for assignment responses from kid, and she was not getting any response. So what every kid was doing, the kids are very smart today, so they knew how to handle it. So every assignment came, they commented, that uploaded the document and left it out there. After 2 days, this parents started getting calls, or your kid had not submitted the assignment, and then parents, they're baffled. So they talk to kids, and the kids show that yeah, I did it, and teacher doesn't know how to look at it. So that's a very different situation, right? If the teacher had enough training, they would not struggle like that. So invest on the teachers, and they will be really very efficient around that. The last two things you can do is request for support from the local government and banks. If you're struggling with the finances, ask the government to prepare some kind of infrastructure where you can get support. Don't get the school closed, because once the school close, again some social disparity will come, and Where will the kids go? What will happen to these futures? This is too big deal, and I think most of the government do care about it. It is just a matter of reaching out the right people who wants to listen and who wants to do something about it. And the last thing you can do is to promise the parents, once the school opens up, when it's come to regular classes, we will make sure that we will introduce additional group classes, tuitions for those kids who are struggling, who have lost the lesson, will come up and catch up. And perhaps when you do these things, it will be easy for parents to understand that yes, you may not be providing the regular classroom sessions, but you are trying to make it better, and you are investing that money, whatever you're charging them, and to make it the whole learning process very better way, very better. Sorry. So you are trying to make the whole learning session very efficient, running technology, infrastructure, process, and they will appreciate that money, whatever you charge them. So as long you are reasonable enough, there should not be any protest around it. So that was about what schools can do. But then again, the parents, as I said, the parents are anxious. They are thinking about my kid is not learning enough, and what can I do about it? The parents also should start having a dialogue with the schools. Talk to the schools for waiver of non-academic charges. As I said some time ago, the building funds. A lot of schools have been charging building fund in India. I think perhaps we can take a pause. The building construction can take a pause for some time for now. And for that period, you should not be charging them. So you should go and talk to your schools and tell you, because guys, it's not going to work for now. But now you stop it, and we can think about later when it comes. Then there are some parents who are not able to afford laptops, mobiles, broadbands, things like that, power sources, if you don't have enough power source in your area. It will be good to talk to your local administration and the banks to arrange a kind of some of financing. And if you are grouped together, working as a community and approach it, perhaps it will work again in favor of you. Use the savings you have asked schools to give you and put that money into these investments. Bring a computer to home, bring a better software, better antivirus, internet provisions at home. You make it use those monies. And if you're going through the finance, make sure you use that money into the financing those stuff, not using for personal gains. So if you have same, for example, transport charges, put that transport charge money into that computer network or buying a computer. And if your society is struggling with the power sources, I remember when I was in my village, there used to be a lot of power cuts. Sometimes the grid used to fail and it used to take weeks to come up. So what people had done is people had started a community generator service. So every day, a few hours it runs, and everybody gets 1 point or 2 based on that, and it runs for a fixed amount of time. So that way, what generator supplier were able to get is get efficient utilization of the power they are generating, and everybody getting the same amount of power. So perhaps you can work in that sources. If you struggle with the only electricity part, you can still work on that. So I talk about how will you be able to afford your technical requirements and to provide the kids what they need to the laptop, computers, all this part. If you are able to save some money from the like transport charges from the schools, which is very reasonable to get it, then if you are able to get finance through that. And I'm mainly talking about those people who have struggles, people who are affluent enough, perhaps this doesn't matter to them. So then, yeah. So use those savings, try to create a community group where you can use those savings together and make something useful for the community. And after all this you have done, the education part we have been talking about, what else we can do as a parent? We are looking at kids who are spending 6, 7, 8 hours, maybe more on computers or the TV screens, for example. When they get out of computer, what they want to watch, something on the telly. It is not good for their health. It is not good for mental health. It is not good for their physical health. And we as a parent need to start thinking about how can we make it better. So they have already spent enough time on the screens. We need to take them off the screen. They start doing something which is more interesting, more bonding, more healthy in terms of. So perhaps you can move the board games and garden games if you have gardens. Bring into that activity. I have small garden around, so what I do is in go to garden, try to do something with the kids. And yesterday we went to somewhere, I saw parents playing egg and spoon games. But that's for refreshing, you know. The kids are spending time on screen, and if they can take off the time from the screen and go into that mode, it will make them happier because everybody wants change in that. Other thing you can do as a parent is, some of the parents are very good in art, some parents are very good in languages. Like I know a few languages, as Komal said, I'm trying to teach my kids Hindi. She knows, they know Maithili already, but I'm trying to teach them Hindi as well. So that keeps them occupied. And what else it gives them is to feel the sense of achievement, you know, which is not challenging. There is no exams around it. It is fun to learn those languages. And they talk about what are the phrases I use. And sometimes it becomes very funny, but it is healthy because they're able to laugh. They're able to think something new. Bring them into daily chores. You can bring them into cooking or cleaning or those kind of activity. So it will give them a physical exercise. It will give them something new they are creating. And their life skill as well. If some kid knows at the age of 13, 14, by they know how to cook, it is going to help them throughout the life to get their food of the favorite foods. So bring them to use the time you have saved from the commuting hours. You to go to school, these kids used to go to school for 1 hour every day, back and forth. It's 2 hours saving. We can use that 2 hour saving into family bonding exercises, things like that. And one very important part is to teach the hygiene practice. It is very diluted when we are at home because we feel that we are not infecting each other. We are together, right? But the practice starts from home. You got to teach your kids every time you do something, you got to wash your hand, you got to wash your hand, you got to wash your hand. You have to keep telling them so much that it becomes a habit. And when that becomes habit, then only they are ready to go back to school. So as a parent, we all of us want them to go back to school, but we want to be safe as well, right? So we can do only if we prepare them enough now. And this is the time, as a parent, we start looking at the hygiene practices at home throughout the day, 24/7. Once that comes, when they go to school, there is less chance of them getting infected, less chances of them getting sick, and perhaps they can build that lifestyle throughout the life. And it is going to keep them when they go to work. Next pandemic comes, for God forbid, doesn't happen. But if it comes, they will be ready to face that. One more thing you can do is academic education. Teaching is one area. You can continuously do it. But encourage reading and writing off topic, not non-academic reading writing. Perhaps they like to read novels or comics or things like that. Encourage it because everything they read is going to enhance their linguistic skills, no matter what they read. So always every reading brings some level of linguistic skills. Debate off topic, off academic topics. For example, we talk about what is happening in America nowadays. We talk about what happens in India. We talk about Trump. You know, we don't like him, but we have to talk about him. Why you don't like him or why you like him. Then we talk some of the topics about recent. There was a problem with the Bollywood actor. It's a sad moment, but my kids are very sensitive and they feel about it. So it's better to let's talk about it. Why do you feel that way? What can we do about it? But when you do that, you allow them to offload their your emotions, and the more the offloading they do, more happier they will be. So reading writing is one part. They can bring into off-topic readings and then again do off-academic topic talks, which will help you to keep yourself because you will be happier, your kids will be happier. Now, also coming back to the what government can do. So we talked about schools can do. Schools have the responsibility to facilitate it. They are facing challenges. Parents have challenges. Parents also facing responsibility. We talk about that. And now I'm talking about the governments. Everybody can blame government, and it's very easy to things to do. But you don't blame government when you are a government. So I have seen every party who was in opposition doing complaining about the moment they switch into the government, they start feeling the sense of responsibility, and it changes. And we as a citizen, we have a lot of complaints, right? So no matter who is in the government, we always have complaints about it. So I try to think about what can they do. If I were the government, what would I suggest them? So in this scenario, I raise some of the problems like power sources, internets, income disparity, these topics I'm talking about. So as a government, what I think every government should start thinking about being the financial assistance program for schools and parents. If the parents are struggling for a laptop and they're not able to get it, help them. Give some kind of security, some kind of guidance to the banks and the local administration. Encourage cheaper production of the items. If you allow the tax rebates, things like that, to give some level of assistance to the parents, they can afford it. If the schools are buying equipment for online classes, and if they are struggling with the finances, allow them the rebates. It is good for the society. You're going to do a very valuable stuff for whole society throughout the life. It's going to change their whole thing in this forever. Private schools. Some of the schools are very notorious in terms of they charge money, and it doesn't look good sometimes because few does it and everybody gets blamed about it. So try to regulate it some way and with a neutral society oriented view. So the schools should be coming at a society oriented with not money making view. Some schools are there, not every schools are there. So I don't blame all the schools. I blame the most of the governance, and perhaps they want to expand and expand and expand. This becomes a business kind of house. But if government doesn't intervene through an independent body or direct, it is going to be often out of control. So they should be start looking at, in this situation, none of the schools should be thinking about making too much money. They should be running afloat. They are able to sustain it. That's enough for now. Then, as I said, to bring the teachers to school, so allow them to teacher communication for their trainings, for their enablement, bring them in, provide them infrastructures, because you can't ask every teacher to buy high spec gadgets, but schools can buy it. Schools can provide the soundproof rooms and things like that. The teachers are parents. They have sick parents at home, dogs, family, traffic noise. They may not be able to conduct the classes as efficiently that you can think of. But if you bring them to school and provide the facility, they will do it. So ask the government should allow the teachers, schools to build such infrastructure and give them tax rebates, give them financial assistance, whatever, do that. If the schools are running on the what you call and going through the distress of because the schools are not getting enough fund, not schools, no new admissions are happening, give them a tax rebate for this reduced earning period at least, so that they don't feel to close because if the school close, then again we are into different situations. And the last thing I was talking about the interview talk about 17-18% houses doesn't have proper electricity. A lot of areas doesn't have proper network coverage, internet coverage or electricity coverage. I think it is time the government brings a kind of policy where they start giving encouragement to companies by tax rebate, by financing, by some other rebates. There are different possibilities in economic terms to allow the companies to expand into those areas. If you go and expand, set up the structure in network areas or what's called rural areas, I will not charge you tax for that. Perhaps they will do it. It will become very easier for them to expand. And it is very important to cover the area where we see the white gaps, right? If they can do it, we all together can do a lot of things. So these were my thoughts, how we have the disparities, how we have challenge in terms of education, and then what the schools, parents, teachers, and government can do together. So that is it from my side. Thank you very much for joining. I will stop sharing the screen now. And hi, Komal.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I really felt like someone sitting just next to me. Like the time passed, it's more than an hour now, and we really felt like someone is sitting just next to us, elder from us, and advising things, the daily things that we are facing, and what could be the possible way to get over those complications that we are facing. One thing that you mentioned about the rural areas, about the community level service, that is being practiced still now in the villages, that if the electricity by government has not been provided, they are using the generators that they have installed through the collective like donation or something like that. And also the online teaching pattern, we can't deny the fact the teachers teaching online are facing a lot of issues. Sometimes the classroom they have to manage, someone enters into the classroom unknown and disturbs the classroom a lot, and the password related issues, as with Zoom, we all have experienced this. How much people have encountered with, they came with issues like someone unknown entering the classes and disturbing the teacher and students as well. And one more thing, that you have been into schooling, living in India. Your school life experience must have been much better than what the students are having today, and myself also. And I want you to share your school experience, that how was your school life, because somewhere in these last few months, the most important part, the creativity part in a student, a young student, up from classes first to 10th maybe, and the thing that they get to know and be more creative about during the classroom sessions, they come up with new ideas all the time while interacting with classroom fellows and with teachers. So somewhere, do you feel the creativity part has been hampered a lot?
In current time in online classes, definitely it is hampered. I mean, I can see that even the kids who are very good at arts, for example, and I heard about somebody running dance classes on online.
Yeah.
But I can imagine in dance, you reciprocate, right? If you have two partners, you're in a group, you see somebody doing better, you try to copy it. That's how I think every artist gets better with the working with other artists. If they are focusing on their own, there is a hamper first thing. And I just say some of the dance is still perhaps you can see and do it, but painting, for example, I am not a good painter, I'm not a good dancer, but I see people who are going through this. For example, actings are very much physical. You see the body language, you see the expressions, you see the tone of the voice and the ambience around it. It changes your whole acting scenarios. If you have not been to that, you are not in theater, you cannot be just come out of anywhere. You learn in the process. So that is hampered. Um, when you talked about my schools, in my school days, we didn't have internet. Okay. So that the best part of the school was we didn't have internet.
Yeah.
So if the school is off, school is off. Okay.
Yeah.
But within the school, what I used to feel is that our teachers had a very broad view of the well-being to education to different aspects of, like, if somebody is a good singer, some of the teachers will come to go, hey, you sing very well, why don't you sing today? So the next 5 minutes he will sing, he will break the whole distress thing in this, what do you call it, the situation becomes very, what you call, pressurized. He usually diffuse it by the song, and somebody does a mimicry. The next 5 minutes he will do the mimicry and then he start studying again. He used to do that. Those things are totally lost. I don't see today people are very serious about everything. It need to break down. We need to let people be people. That is very important. And because we have too much information going around through internet, social media, and all things, it influences our thoughts every day. I will give you an example. Mrs. Indira Gandhi died, right? I came to know about 8 hours later. Okay, and by the time we were happy. So by the time, and today what happens? Something happens in India. Perhaps they are not directly related, but they get a information, and that changes their whole thought process. So for example, I'm doing a chemistry study. I come to know my favorite star had some different kind of mishaps. He got arrested. He got, I have Justin Bieber and things like that. And you get upset about it. So we didn't have that. So that is change. Physical interaction was more in school those days. In England, I talk, here is a different, teachers don't touch kids for so many safety reasons, but it's totally bad. You cannot touch kids at all. But my principal used to treat me like son. So he will come to my home, he will talk, have dinner with us and go back. That's usually difference. That is totally gone. Time has changed. But other than online, I think creativity is still there. I can see more creative people in the world today than we had 50 years ago. May not be you don't get Picasso every day, but there are people who are doing very amazing work in terms of art and craft. Online, we are yet to see the results. Some of the kids will definitely come very good and a gamer and developers and things like that. They will come up. We will see that. I don't think it's too much hampering that, but I'm more concerned about the three aspects of, I say, the education. Leadership skills, it doesn't come offline on the day, just doing online courses. You cannot learn music just by going online to people and listening to YouTube and start becoming Mozart. You can't become that. You have to go through the every tiny details the teacher here, it helps that. So physical education, I said, you cannot teach football on the computers. You cannot teach some of the things we have learned karate. I heard about somebody teaching karate online in a Zoom class. I don't know
Yeah.
how they do that. I have been to judo, what's called taekwondo schools, and my teacher was very well. And I know that every time he punched me. So I cannot imagine how will somebody do that? And if that is to do, then why won't I go to YouTube and do that? So
Yes,
the people,
exactly.
as the parents, I feel like, okay, it's not worth.
Mm.
They are trying different things, but it's not very satisfactory as it comes. So that's why I
Mm.
said that if the teachers are going into that online mode, then perhaps we make online more and more better equipped and bring the core subject into the focus, and perhaps allow when the schools open up to catch up on the other subjects.
Mm. Physical presence matters a lot of
Yeah.
when it comes about learning and about the creativity part. Also, people who are too much busy with their daily work, with their daily jobs and everything, now they have got some time and they have become more creative in terms of their
Yes.
building up their old habits and creating some very I myself, I'll tell you, I lost a habit of sketching since about 10 years ago, and during this lockdown I revived it and did some nice work, and I was like, okay, I remember a few things that I used to do now. So it is a quite good experience as well, but when it comes to the experiencing and watching things around, what is happening around the world, it becomes quite depressing to see. But still, what we need to do is to be more positive right now. And Fazan, you would like to say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Another question, sir. Can online teaching provide the same benefit as face-to-face, the same lecture, face-to-face lecture in the classroom?
Yeah, the physical lecture classroom
Appearance. How that
environment.
come difference in the online?
I have been to both. Okay, so you touch a very good topic, and sometime I think in my during my speech I talked about it. The online classes can bring the academic stuff to the people, right? I have done some of the trainings which in 5 days, 7 days, online classes back to back, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there are sessions we have 3 breaks, 2 15-minute break for coffee, 1 hour break for lunch. We do that and then go to classes. Today, if you try to do, for example, project management training or some certification training, that's how it happens. They call it live virtual classes. But what I feel is the curriculum classes are slightly different. Right? For example, you're talking about the school lectures or college lectures. When you get the feedback from other learners, which is gets missed into this online. It is not very convenient for people to interrupt you and then pass some comments. What did you say about it? Right? Suppose teacher, you start talking about something and then there is a feedback from the back. Oh, this is what he said. Was it enough? I see that interaction is missing, and it's not very easy for coordinator to manage it. Online classes are also difficult when we have too many participants. If you can do 5 people, it's very easy. 10 people is still manageable. Make it 30, it's a chaos.
Yeah.
Because first thing, your screen doesn't capture all of them. You don't see their facial expressions. When I'm talking in the public, in the classroom, and I look around, oh, are they impressed with my thoughts? I keep changing with the reaction. When I'm looking at the teacher face to face and I'm talking, I can see whether he's positively taking it or not. Then I change my responses. I change this, what I want to say. But in online, I have to lose it, right? If I, like, for example, in this session, I was sharing my screens. Had it been other people, the 50 people in front of me, perhaps I would have done something slightly different, right? Because I need to know, I need to get to read the mind of the people, what they're thinking about what I'm saying. And that's constant feedback model. So that is totally lost in these online classes. Otherwise, you can bring the curriculum, but you cannot bring the leadership element of that, what I was talking about, the interaction part, that gets missed out. You will have to go back to some tuner, maybe some of the trainings you do online and then go to real life job and then you realize, oh, nobody told me so. Because it is very set. When you do online things, you sit in a set different framework and you have to stay within that framework. to work on that. So that is the one challenge I see. Otherwise, you can bring the subject. Some subjects are difficult to teach. For example, cooking. You don't smell the food, you don't cook. So you can taste it.
Exactly.
You can tell on YouTube how good it looks, but
Yeah.
the real taste, you don't know whether it's salty or sweet rasgulla. That
Yeah.
difference comes.
The one who
Online,
cooks, his
online,
expression matters.
online teaching have limited sources as compared to the when you come to the face to face and
Yeah,
interact with the persons.
yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so
Uh,
much, sir.
you were actually wonderful.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
the session was completely like, as I told you, my experience was this. I don't know about others because as
Was
I
there
see,
any was there any question? Was there any question from anybody?
that's what I'm looking for.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, the same. I asked you that about the creativity level among students. How has it has been hampered? Can it be that much effective as in online that it used to be offline? The same question has been asked by many people actually. And the same problem entering into the classroom, online classrooms through any unknown identity and disturbing the classroom sessions. And
Yes, I will touch that subject. In India perspective, I do not think the online classes is fruitful. It is look like just school is fulfilling their column only.
yeah, this
We
is
have
also
to we have to get serious about it. Okay, I will tell you, as a teacher, as a parent, we are both responsible at times. It is very new for India to go online. Okay, we have seen WhatsApp, we have seen Facebook, perhaps we have seen YouTube, but we have not seen real online world how it interacts. Half, not only half, many of us have never been to online class. And went to online class when I left India and came to here, and then I had to go through that. I will assume that my younger generation who are 15, 20 years younger than me had been more chances to go into that. But still, I do not think the mothers who are sitting at home and running the classes, okay, telling your son to go to class, you join the login classroom, and he say, I don't want to go. So that is one thing. So parents also have to learn. This is what I talk about. The parents will have to get familiarized how things work, what happens around there, and then have a constant feedback model. So why talk about feedback model is here my kid, for example, didn't submit this classroom what you call assignment.
Mhm.
Next day I get a call, I get a message on the mail that your kid is overdue, for example. If you are thinking that okay, my kid got a lesson on WhatsApp and they're supposed to prepare and send it, and if you have not seen the responses back, it becomes your responsibility also to look at, because time you save from commuting and all these kind of activities doing that monitoring, and then talk to teachers. Okay, I don't think it's working. Maybe we should try something differently. And the more you talk to teachers, the more trustworthy relationship will become. Every relationship starts with a doubt, ends with trust. I've seen that. I can tell you exactly that you can talk to a teacher and teacher will feel that first day you're complaining, second day they will listen to you, third day they will start acting your feedback, and fourth day you are on very bonded one. As long you're honest. You both have to be very honest about that. You start with the complaint, they think, oh, he's just complaining. But if you tone positive and talk consistently, they start listening to you. I have been to those schools recent 2 years ago. I went back to India. I went to one of my niece's school. When I started talking, they felt like I'm complaining. Half an hour down the line, they think this is the first time I'm getting the feedback like that. So you have to do that. That is one thing. So yes, they are trying to fill the column. As I said, they are in stress of financials. They need to run the schools. They're trying to make sure that they stay afloat. They don't want to close the schools. If they close the schools, you're also in the problem. It's not only them. Okay, the schools will change. It will become a mall. It will become a hotel. For them, it's not a big loss. For loss for you is a good school will disappear from your locality. So that's the parents you have to make sure that is they run. But they run efficiently is their responsibility also. As I told you, what can a school do about it? The school needs to think that I need to invest in infrastructure. If I have to send message on WhatsApp, why can't I buy the app? Put 30, 40,000 in a software, you will be able to run a class efficiently. Then you tell your parents that I'm going to charging you because I'm doing this investment, right? And parents will be happy about it. So it has to be done both ways. The parents have to give the feedback carefully. The teachers have to, schools have to think about, I want to stay afloat. I want to do this business continuously forever. And for that, I have to do some investment. If you show the investment the right way, perhaps parents also will feel that what current parent is saying, fulfilling the column, that sentiment goes away. So that is the kind of trust building. It's a long exercise, and that is one thing. And
And
anything
earlier,
to
when the
fake ID
schools
and
And earlier, when the schools were running, parents used to miss the parent-teacher sessions also. And now when the schools are closed, now they come to know about the problems going on with the kids and on the teacher side. So if they wouldn't have missed those special meetings, then things have been much better. The interaction between teacher and parents is quite important some
it
way
has to
because
happen. It has to
yeah,
happen. Maybe initially it is not very good. As I say, the first time you don't like teachers because you think they're charging you money, and they don't think every parents complain. That's the
yeah,
start of the relationship. You have a positive dialogue few times, and oh, he's a nice parent, he's a nice teacher.
yeah,
Nobody is a teacher just because they want to cheat. They
yeah,
really are there because they want to teach, and they're working hard to get it better. Whatever their capacity they have, they are putting their 100%. Okay.
yeah.
One
Very
more
well.
question I see that Kanchan Roy, last question I think I will try to address. Does the technology can create a strong educational foundation and encourage or enhance the creativity among the students? I think you touched the subject, Komal.
Yeah,
Creativity among students will work. Some of the art and craft creativity is a very different kind of. For example, asking a student to create a video game. It is pure technical stuff.
yeah,
They can do it. Creating a PowerPoint slide is pure technical stuff. But creating a, for example, the glass mold, for example, or physical experiment I do with the soil, for example, the pottery exercise,
yeah.
it needs careful guidance of the teacher being around, and perhaps that will not be easy. So that's why I said you should, teachers and parents both should focus on the curriculum subject today. When the school opens up, catch up on the other subject. It will be easier for that way.
Yeah.
uh, yes, I see the behaviors are one area where Raghuji again talking about rural area perspective. Online
Yes.
teaching pattern have a lot of challenge. It has a challenge, and that's why this whole forum is, that disparity among the education, the society, the economic, and all we have to address gradually, and we need to start thinking rapidly about that to address that. Anything else? If you didn't had, then
No, sir, nothing else. We have taken a lot of time of yours, but we are actually thankful that you gave us your precious time. And it was Sunday, that's why maybe you were also able to make it. And thank you so much once again on behalf of whole team of kind beings. And you yourself are responsible for Isamad as well. So I hope it was a fruitful session for you also, and people listening to you are really have been really helped by the informations that you have shared, and thank you once again for being with
Thank you,
us.
sir.
thank
And
you.
so
Thank you
be in
for
the
giving an
room,
opportunity.
I'll just end the broadcast. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, all the viewers, for joining us for the session. And this was Mr. Kautuk Raman sharing his views. And tomorrow, we'll have our fourth session with Dr. Anbu Arumugam from Annamalai University, Political Science Department professor in Presidency College. And she'll be sharing the leadership issues that has happened during the lockdown and the unlockdown part as well. So see you guys again tomorrow, same time, 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
Kamal. Thanks.
अरे अरे हम स्पीकर को बोलते रुकने के लिए, सुनते ही नहीं है स्पीकर.
Live, you are live. End the session.
I've ended.
Not, it's not ended.
It's ended.